So do you feel like vegetables always taste bad? Well, it doesn't have to be like that. As most naturally healthy people know, vegetables can actually taste delicious when you season them well. And the cool news is when you learn that trick, then you naturally want to eat more vegetables. It just becomes this cycle of goodness. So stick around to find out how to make vegetables. So number one is to use salt. And the reason for this is many vegetables contain bitter flavors, and while bitterness, I really like it, it's a bit of an acquired taste. So the thing is that it's not something we're naturally drawn to like sweetness. And the cool thing is that when you add salt to things, it actually masks the bitter flavor on your palate. And so it tastes so the things that without salt can taste quite bitter, when you add salt, they taste really, really good, much better. So one of the biggest mistakes people make with cooking vegetables is not to add enough salt because they think they should be healthy and that salt's bad. And then, of course, like eating bucket loads of processed food and heaps of salt is not great for us. But we also do need to have some salt in our diet, and using like the small amounts. You don't need to add a lot of salt to vegetables to take it from bland and bitter tasting to this beautiful, good flavors that we get from salt. So that's my first one, and I've put it in a picture of some chili salt there. So that's as a like bit of a you can use plain salt, like sea salt flakes, or any salt is fine. But if you want to add even more flavor, you can use like flavored salts. So that's a little hack you can go with. Okay, so then number two, in terms of my ways to make vegetables taste better, is to use a tasty sauce. And the cool thing is that many sauces actually contain fats, and fats have they make vegetables taste better, but they also help us absorb more of the nutrients from the vegetables because the vegetables tend to be lacking in fat soluble vitamins. So you get this double bonus if you have the if you it tastes better when you use a sauce with your vegetables, but you're also getting more nutrition from them as well. And you don't have to make your own sauces. Like there are plenty of amazing commercial options out there. I love Kewpie mayonnaise, there's a lot of great mayonnaises out there. Pesto can be harder to find a good one, but there are a few good Italian brands. Hummus, there's a million options there. And actually, if you think about it, all the other like avocado dips and all those dips that you get in the health food in the snacks section of the supermarket where the hummus lives. Like there's a heap of things you can explore there, or you could of course make your own hummus. I love sriracha, which is a Thai hot sauce, or also Tabasco if you like a bit of heat. There's like a whole world of hot sauces out there. And then there's also things like avocado sauces, so guacamole. I've also got my amazing avocado sauce, or tahini sauces where I like to just mix equal parts of tahini and water, and that gives you a really lovely sauce. And then, of course, there's like the Asian sauces like soy sauce and oyster sauce, which you have some salt in them, but they are giving you that beautiful flavor to your vegetables. And one of my favorite dishes of all time is just like shaved cabbage or sliced cabbage, stir fried or pan fried, and then tossed with some oyster sauce. It's like so, so delicious. So yeah, number two, use a tasty sauce. Number three, in terms of making vegetables, ways to make vegetables taste better, is to think about number three and four are to do with the cooking method that you choose. And I would encourage you to, like, one of the reasons people have bad experiences with vegetables is that they've eaten vegetables that have been boiled till the life has been sucked out of them, which I experienced in my childhood. And the thing is that overcooking anything doesn't make it taste great, but particularly vegetables, because we get these extra sulfur compounds can come in and give you these off kind of notes to them. Particularly if you've ever had boiled Brussels sprouts, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like so over, and then also the texture. You lose the texture when you overboil vegetables, and they go mushy, and it's not a pleasant textural or flavor experience. So for me, the only things I boil are broad beans, and I do boil broccoli, but I use a tiny amount of water, and I'm very careful with my cooking time. So you want to boil it just enough so that it's tender, like it's not super crunchy anymore, but you don't want to take it any further than that. And the other vegetable I do boil is potatoes. So But apart from that, I don't boil vegetables. So how do I cook my veg if I'm not boiling them? Well, for most things, I roast them or pan fry or stir fry. And recently I've invested in an air fryer, so I've been using air frying as well. And the cool thing is, like, all these dry heat methods of cooking vegetables, they just add that extra layer of flavor because you get this caramelization when you brown vegetables. And if you think about, roast capsicum or roast eggplant, like that compared to boiled, or roast zucchini compared to boiled, or even if you compare like roast potatoes to boiled potatoes, like there's so much more flavor and interesting texture going on with roast potatoes than there is with boiled potatoes. So the same goes across all vegetables. So if you're not sure about how to cook a vegetable, I recommend popping it in the oven, like roasting it, and it just you get that extra flavor. And it's just can make a world of difference to your experience of vegetables. And then the next tip I have for you is to use like use good quality vegetables. And the thing is that, like, when we vegetables in particular, they're an organic ingredient. They're not like something that we shelf stable. And so it's like and there's different varieties, there's different growing conditions, like all these factors play into how good a vegetable, and also like how old the vegetable is, like whether it's freshly picked or whether it's been sitting on the shelf for weeks and weeks. And so if you're not enjoying your vegetables, looking at where you're buying your vegetables is a great thing to do. And I remember, like, I used to hate boiled peas. Like, my mum used to boil the life out of them, and like eating peas when I was a child was like torture. But then I had this experience where I went to a restaurant that was like a farm to table place, and they had peas in the garden. So they had these fresh peas that were being just picked and just cooked to perfection. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this was like was like a whole new vegetable for me. Like couldn't believe how sweet, and like the texture was really like popped in my mouth. Like I just loved them. And I was like, wow, it's so different to my childhood experience. And so share this example just so you know, like, just because you think you don't like a particular vegetable, it's often like if you try it from a different source, you might find that you actually do enjoy it. It's just like you don't like bad quality versions. And even I think, like, if you want to get into going to the farmer's market, amazing. If you want to get into growing your own vegetables, amazing. But also if you're not up for that, you don't have to. But and I would recommend, even though I use that frozen pea example, I think frozen vegetables are a great investment and a great thing to use because you get that consistency, and because they're so shelf stable, and so they just like they last in the freezer until you're ready to use them. So it makes them so much more approachable. And but the thing with frozen vegetables is that I've used them a lot. Like, I love them, and I've noticed a huge variation between different brands. Like, there's these McCain's make these like baby peas, and you get them, and it's almost like fresh peas out of the garden, and they taste really good, and they've got this beautiful texture. Whereas I've bought other brands, and they've been like stringy and like hot woody and just not nice at all. So and same with like frozen spinach. Like, I love the Aldi brand. It's like 89 cents a packet, and it's really finely chopped, and it just has this beautiful spinachy flavor. And I bought other, even organic brands, that have been chunky and just not nice to eat. So I would encourage you to experiment with frozen vegetables, and also try a few different brands until you find one that you like. Okay, and then of our 6 ways to make vegetables taste good, number 6 is to use what I call flavor bombs. And so flavor bombs are just ingredients that pack a lot of flavor, of course, and or texture, that you can just add at the end of cooking, or just before you serving, or even add them at the table to bring your dish alive. So, or bring your vegetables alive. And so here's a list of some of my favorites. So finely grated Parmesan cheese. Like, it adds saltiness, it adds umami, and it just makes everything taste better. Like, it works on your spaghetti bolognese, but it works really well on some broccoli or peas. Like, it just adds that extra interestingness. And actually, and all other cheeses can work as well, like feta or goat's cheese can be lovely too. Then we've got things like roast nuts. So got some roast almonds here. Like, you don't have to roast your own. You can just buy them already done. I particularly love pine nuts and pistachios, but I do love almonds as well. And they add the crunch. They've got this big flavor, and they just make it more interesting. And then we've got things like chili flakes or chili powder. So that can add some heat, which adds excitement to your vegetables as well. Similar in a similar way to the hot sauce does. Then another of my favorites is this thing called furikake, which is a Japanese rice seasoning. It's normally used on rice, but it works really well on vegetables. So you just sprinkle that over before you, well, while you're eating or after when you're eating. And it's a mixture of seaweed and sesame seeds and I can't remember what else, but it tastes really good. You can buy them in the Asian section of the supermarket. Everything bagel seasoning, that's another favorite of mine that works really well on vegetables. It has poppy seeds, sesame seeds, and salt in all combined in there, and it just adds that savoriness, but also a bit of crunch and interesting, makes it look pretty. Freshly ground black pepper. Now, this is something my pepper grinder broke just before Christmas, and so I actually had I'd asked Santa for one, so I had a few weeks without freshly ground black pepper, and I couldn't believe how much I missed it. Like, it's a it's a standard seasoning for a reason because it adds a little bit of heat without it being too much, and it adds those beautiful aromatics. So you get, and also visually, it looks good as well. So it just elevates your experience of eating your vegetable. And then we've got things like pickles can be really great because they add some freshness and some crunch. Pickled olives, also amazing that they add that, like, briny flavor explosion when you have them. Dried fruit can be an unexpected, and even fresh fruit, you can use that with when you're cooking vegetables, like to serve with your vegetables. I particularly love, I said fried cranberries there, but I particularly love dried cranberries, but dried apricots, fresh strawberries. Like, any fruit can work well because it adds that sweetness and that extra flavor. And then the herbs, like, so get basil, parsley, any of the fresh herbs, mint, or coriander, like, they add that visual interest, but they also add those aromatic flavors, and they bring vegetables to life. So many, yeah. So just to recap, our 6 ways to make vegetables taste good: use salt. And if I was going to only include one, that would be my number one, is to use salt. I think that's the biggest mistake people make, is they don't use enough salt. Number 2 is to use a tasty sauce. Number 3, don't boil your veg. Number 4, roast them instead, or pan fry or stir fry or air fry. And then number 5 was to use good quality vegetables. And then, lucky last, number 6 is to experiment with flavor bombs. And so, if you'd like some easy recipes for how to make vegetables taste good, so more specific examples, check out the link in below this video, and you can go to my blog, and that'll have links to actual recipes there as well.